Schulenberg. I'm the Executive Director of the Society of Collision Repair Specialists. Very appreciative of everybody taking time out of what is an amazing, busy show with a lot of opportunities and a lot of things going on to place a priority on training and place a priority on informing yourselves to be prepared for tomorrow and the vehicles that we're working on today. This session is all about forward-looking topics. It's all about how we as an industry prepare for the technologies that are in our shops today and the technologies that are coming tomorrow, and how we make sure that as businesses, we're prepared to fix these cars and to serve these customers and do it safely and properly. I'm glad that you place as much importance on that as the Society of Collision Repair Specialists does as well. I'd like to invite everybody to take an empty seat, and we're going to dive right into the program. Before we do, a little bit of housekeeping. We have panels up here who are full of knowledge, full of insight, and who want to deliver the information that you're looking for. We've placed on your seat a question card. If you have a question throughout, please write it down on the card. You can raise your hand and hold it up, and one of us will grab it from you, and we'll make sure it gets up to the moderator. If you really would like to ask your question verbally, we do have a mic in the aisle as well. But if you put it on the card, we'll make sure that John, our moderator, will make sure that he works it into the program as well so that we can answer it and we can just make it nice and seamless. So with that, I'd like to introduce John Ellis with Ellis Associates. John is he is not a car guy, but he will tell you more about that, and I'll welcome him up and he can bring his panel up. So John, please come on up.
Good morning, Vegas. How are you? I love the fact that the lights are on and I can't see a single person. So, as Aaron said, my name is John, and it's a pleasure to be here. This is my second year. Actually, some of you who were here last year may have seen me on stage being interviewed by Aaron Clark as we were talking about the complexity of vehicles, the amount of software in vehicles, and what does that mean to you as repairers and as concerned members of the industry. So we thought we were going to do another session, so you're going to see me for the next 2 hours. As Aaron said, I'm not a car guy, I'm a software guy. I couldn't tell you the first thing about cars. As I was jokingly telling people when I was at Ford, I knew 4 things about the car that I owned at Ford. It had 4 wheels, it was a Ford, it took unleaded gas, and it had something called a 3.6 liter engine, which I don't even really know what that means. And then there was a 5th thing that I learned over time, that it went over 100 miles an hour, so said the state police of Michigan. So I don't really care about the car. You're going to see that in the kinds of questions that I pushed to the gentleman both in our first session and in our second session. One thing that I'm going to ask you to respect, we have not had a scripted agreement to this conversation. So the gentleman you're about to meet this morning, we did one phone call where we each introduced ourselves and we understood sort of the off-limit topics that you might not want to talk about in a bar. But outside of that, we have not given them any questions. They don't know what and how this conversation is going to unfold. And so with that in mind, I would ask that you please respect, if you're going to ask a question, understand that there are things that they're probably going to have to tell you no to. And if we feel, as the moderator and as Aaron feels, that the questions are inappropriate or looking to maybe embarrass somebody, we're going to also check those out. So just please respect that, because with that, these guys are happy to share and happy to open the kimono. So with that, no further ado, I'm going to welcome them up one at a time. Please give a warm welcome for Chris Toby from American Honda. Justin Miller from Nissan. Eric Mendoza from Toyota. And John Hughes from Chrysler. Thank you very much. Come on up. Good. Thank you for joining. Thank you. All right. Pretend I just bought you a beer. We're all sitting down in the bar, right? That's it. Okay. As I said, no scripted questions except for the one, which is please introduce yourself. I've obviously given your name and your company, but give them a 1 minute who you are and what role you play in the industry.
My name is Chris Toby. I am collision business specialist for American Honda Motor Company in Torrance, California. I've been with Honda almost 13 years. Pretty extensive background as a technician, instructor, instructional designer. I handle all the collision repair technical documents and training for American Honda.
Excellent. Justin.
My name is Justin Miller. I'm with Nissan North America. I help to manage the Nissan Certified Collision Program, as well as the Infinity program and our GTR program. I have been at Nissan for a pretty short period of time, and I have an insurance background for 7 years in claims. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Eric.
I'm Eric Mendoza. I work for Toyota Motors North America as the collision repair and refinish training assistant manager. It's my responsibility to make sure that anybody reporting collision repairs in our vehicles has the training resources that they need to do a proper repair.
Excellent. John.
I'm John Hughes. I'm from Fiat Chrysler. I'm the collision responsible for all of our vehicles. I am involved in the crash testing to a degree of our vehicles. I'm involved in the collision repair manuals, anything related to collision repair.
It's for some of us, it's been a really long morning because it was a really late night. The game was really long, right? Yeah. Right. Excellent. So, gentlemen, last year there was a lot of conversation about why code scan, what to code scan, what is code scanning, especially for folks in the industry who are just either new into it or beginning to start working with vehicles. That today the tipping point being these advanced technologies. But however, in the most recent couple of months, there's been a lot of conversation from all of you publicly about code scanning. So what I'd like to do is take this as a public safety opportunity, go ahead and let the audience know what you've stated in the last few months, what you've clarified as we've talked about, Chris. And then from there, we'll go into our little dialogue of what's going on.
Okay, so we issued a position statement back in July that it's 3 pages, pretty detailed, explains the what and the whys. There have been codes that can set in a vehicle without indicator lights for at least 20 years, going back to the onset of OBD2. The tipping point is basically all the safety systems and the safety and collision avoidance that are now going to become very commonplace and pretty much standard on every car by 2022. This stuff is not going to go away. It is not going to get simpler. And while not every code is an imminent safety threat, we need to know what's in that car. We need to have that on the repair plan, and then we need to have a negotiation take place of what is reasonably related to the loss and notify the customer of what is in their car, what it might have been from a previous event. Sometimes that's difficult in the gray area.
And I think what was, the clarity that we want to share to folks, right, is it was a clarification of an existing policy that American Honda had for a while.
Yes, we've always had a policy that cars that are diagnosed in a shop by a dealer, you check codes. That's been standard for almost 30 years now, that you have to do that. But keep in mind that repair diagnostics that are written in the service manual are written for one failure, one fix. They're written assuming one problem happened to a car. In the case of a collision, we have a vehicle that was subjected to an unknown force. Nobody knows how hard those boxes got rattled. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Every code has different criteria to set. There's a lot of factors that aren't present in a dealership service environment, so we have to approach it a little differently.
Gotcha. John, Chrysler simultaneous to has had something, so you want to just go ahead and restate the clarification that you all issued this past summer.
Yeah, part of the position statement was that we wanted to make sure that the vehicle was checked pre and post, and obviously pre because you want to verify what's been or what occurred on the vehicle. Number one, see what you have in history. We weren't really worried about what you might find. I mean, typically you're going to have miles on a vehicle when it gets damaged. There's very few that get damaged within the first 100 miles. It's obviously it's thousands of miles on a vehicle before it gets damaged. So we really didn't care about the mileage, but the important thing was that we do the pre and we do the post, and we're finding that in a lot of cases, and we discussed that a little bit yesterday in another meeting, that people aren't doing the post because they're not doing their quality inspection. And then what happens is, did they do the repair correctly? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. And 2 weeks later, here comes, if you're lucky, you get a light. If not, you may end up with a situation where something doesn't work as it was supposed to, and you get the customer coming back. We want the vehicle fixed right the first time, and that's basically our thought process behind it. I wrote the position statement. Obviously, it took almost a month with all the different people that were involved in it, our safety people and our Office of General Counsel and various other people. And part of the reason that we didn't give specific model years was you need a VIN number to tell what's on that vehicle. And like, I have a 1999, and I didn't know what was on it until I put the VIN number in myself, because it didn't have a lot of documentation when I bought it and so on and so forth. And so that's part of it could be the same scenario that you all are working on somebody's vehicle outside, and you end up putting in the VIN number in your estimating system, and boom, out comes what options are on that vehicle. And that's basically how you're gonna fix it. If you don't know what you have, you don't know what you got.
Right. So Eric, not just, again, as with the rest of the audience, the rest of the panel, Toyota's had a long-standing policy. You reaffirmed it this past summer. You want to just let people know what your positions were?
Yeah, our position is very similar to these two gentlemen, that you need to scan a vehicle before repair and after repair to make sure that you're completing
The definition of a safe repair.
safe, complete, comprehensive, all repair, all the above, right? What it comes down to is the industry has relied on their hands, their eyes to assess a vehicle, assess the damage, and use the malfunction indicator light as a criteria of, is there an electrical problem with this vehicle? Well, in the mid-90s, Nobody 2 came out. We added a tool. Malfunction indicator light was a tool for the customer to identify there's an issue, I need to take my car to the shop. Diagnostic trouble codes are a tool for the technician. For technicians, diagnostic trouble codes don't all set lights. For technicians, we need to embrace the tool of the diagnostic trouble codes, get the scan tool to find those diagnostic trouble codes and identify all of the issues that need to be addressed during the repair.
Great. Justin, again, Nissan's had a long-standing policy. You reaffirmed. For the folks in the audience, if you could just restate what that affirmation was.
Yep, so really high level, we're a little bit different from these guys in that both Nissan and Infiniti's position statements are, we highly recommend pre-scanning a vehicle, but we do not make it mandatory. I think there are some instances in collision repair where it wouldn't be justified. I will tell you, in conversations with my engineering, they said it needs to be done. But I think if you apply that to the way the collision industry is right now on the ground, I think that it might be a little pushy to ask a shop to do it every single time. So Nissan and Infiniti both take the position that pre-scanning is very important. It's highly recommended. We leave it at that. Post-scanning, 100% mandatory. We say on every vehicle. The Nissan position statement came out in June of this year. And since NACE, our last panel that we had, some of the insurance partners had mentioned that, like you stated, that by saying all, we weren't kind of being clear enough. I thought it was pretty clear, but so
lots of definitions.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
So
all, there's all y'all.
right.
You
So
all, right?
y'all, right? Exactly. From Nashville, so. We just came out with the Infiniti version of the position statement, and like Eric referenced, the mid-90s is when our vehicles started becoming compatible with the console tool. So I actually did put that in the Infiniti position statement just to clear that up, and that would apply to Nissan as well. I think 95, we had 2 models each that were compatible with the console. 96 on is good. So our position is that anything past the mid-90s, anything that can be plugged in with the console in red, that's what we want a mandatory scan on post-repair.
And if we can speak just a little bit, you do take the deviating step to make it as a recommendation. So as an independent repair shop, are there guidelines for when and why to scan? And when I get to that is like some of the other gentlemen said, you don't know what you don't know until you've looked inside. So if it's a recommendation that leaves a little bit of ambiguity for folks, how do they work through that?
I think that they're the experts when it comes to understanding what to look for, blueprinting on a vehicle. All right, so I want to give the shops out there autonomy to make a decision, make a judgment call on whether they think it's appropriate in that case, and I think they should have the autonomy to do that.
I'd love to jump in on this one too. Justin, we're actually similar in the regards of recommended and required, and we put both in there, right?
Yeah.
And we put in, it's required. A diagnostic scan is required of people picking our vehicles in a situation where they identify some sort of electrical system compromise. So if the part of the collision, you see something that's electrically related wrong, whether that be a headlight, a tail light that's damaged, or in some cases, a bumper that's smashed in on a vehicle that has blind spot monitoring. All those things could affect an electrical system. So if it could affect an electrical system, it's required, because we can justify it. We can say, hey, that's electrically related. Maybe it didn't set a malfunction indicator light. Therefore, you need to hook up a scan tool to make sure that you cover all your bases. And then we continued on to say, and additionally, we recommend on every car before and after. And then why? Why do we recommend before if it's something that isn't potentially related to the accident? Well, it's an opportunity to identify something that wasn't related to the accident that maybe the customer's expecting you to repair or not. There are benefits to that. We see value in doing a pre-repair and value in doing a post-repair from a customer satisfaction standpoint, right? So I worked on cars for many years, and unfortunately, I had left a connector disconnected on a couple of them or something before they got delivered back to the customer, and I had to find out from an upset customer that I left the connector disconnected. Had I performed a scan on that vehicle, there's a good chance that I would have caught that. There's value in performing scan before returning the car to the customer. So we've recommended it in that case. We can't, like you said, Justin, we can't really justify saying it's mandatory you have to do it, because it's possible that you'll perform a scan and you won't find anything. That Eric connected all the connectors on that repair. I think that it's funny to hear us speak about this, and we're so careful, right? We try to cover all the bases and consider all the stakeholders. Right. It's an insurance company, it's a shop making this repair decision. We really do our best, and your month long took our group probably 3 months.
Same here. Yeah, about the same. Yeah. When John's came out, mine was going through legal.
Yeah.
It was like, oh,
You just got out of legal, right?
And let me share some insight with ours. We tried to keep it short. Ours is 1 page. That was an effort to try and make it comprehensive, because the more careful that we try to be, the more risk we run of making it uncomprehensive, of making it confusing. And we're really trying not to confuse, we're trying to clarify. So we're trying.
No. And that, as I said to you guys, right, this conversation was to bring all that out, right? We're all, it's the faceless corporation gets slammed a lot, but it really is backed by folks like you all and the efforts that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to this, John. As you can see, all the manufacturers approach this in a little different way, but every one of us knows there are various stakeholders with sometimes opposing goals in this process, and we've tried to respect all those. So what Honda did in their position statement, we said a collision is defined as any damage exceeding minor outer cosmetic panel distortion, and you must do a pre-scan on that car because there's a whole lot of parts that have wires going to them that didn't used to have wires going to them even 5 years ago. So pre-scan is mandatory. In that case, a post-scan is required. Even if it was minor outer cosmetic distortion, a post-scan is required if you disconnected any wires. And so those qualifications are stated in the position statement because, as Eric pointed out, you could have a bumper cover with radar in it, and you may have to unhook something. Did you leave something unhooked? Did you leave a safety system unhooked?
Right.
It's not good for the customer to find that out.
Or not safe sometimes.
No.
Exactly.
Right. And the other interesting thing is, you can end up with DTCs at very, very low speeds. We found in one instance it was 2.5 miles an hour. Okay, and there was no visible issues on the outside of the vehicle, period. And it just happened to be that somebody checked it. Codes here,
Right.
you know.
So, Chris, I'm gonna, because I think it's fascinating. I know the other guys all agreed that it was fascinating, so I'll let you take the lead on this. But you took the effort to actually take one of your lowest entry model vehicles. It's the latest model year, so 17, lowest entry model into the marketplace, and you went and literally looked at every place where engineers throughout Honda had decided to throw a code.
Yes.
How many codes were there, and how many actually translated to the light indicator on the dashboard? I think the audience, take note of this, because I think this will summarize the issue quite clearly.
I took a Honda Fit, which is our entry-level car, does not offer the Honda sensing suite of safety and driver assistance systems at this time, and depending on the options, that car can have up to 510 DTCs. Only a certain percentage of those actually turn a light on. And I don't think most of the industry understands the magnitude of the number of DTCs that are in a car today. If you get to a fully loaded Pilot or a fully loaded Odyssey Touring Elite, you are probably approaching 1,000 DTCs in that car. You can't turn a light on for all those codes. It's simply not possible. So we have to make this very clear. Indicators are for driver notification. They are not diagnostic tools. They never were intended for that.
I did just on that same note, I did a kind of a background investigation for one of the other hosts of one of the other talk sessions like this, and he wanted to know how many ML lights we had. So I went through all of our information. I came up with 13.
13 mils.
13 mils, and that was on one specific vehicle. Then I went back through and checked, and there was close to 1,000 DTCs available for that vehicle.
But only roughly 10%, 13,
Right.
actually lit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
The numbers are pretty staggering.
So audience members, if you haven't been following that conversation, the issue is that yes, you can have issues in the car, lots of issues in the car that light indicators are not going to find. So it's prudent and maybe even incumbent on you to do the scanning, which is where the clarification statements come from. I want to remind people there are question cards. We will talk for as long as we're having a good time, but you all have information or questions you want to answer, so make sure you start putting, and I cannot see, so please don't raise your hand. I can't see. Can any of you see?
No.
Okay.
I can see.
So you're completely anonymous. You're completely, at least for us, you're completely anonymous. But go ahead and ask questions.
Real quick, I think that last topic was good. I applaud you, gentlemen. I have not tackled that project yet, but I think
But you can do rubbing
I
at home,
could, right? Just when I get home immediately. No, I hear that a lot of insurance companies base whether they'll approve a post scan or not on mill lights. So I think it's worth noting that that should not be the deciding factor going forward. Keep that top of mind.
One of the, just on that same note, one of the things that we haven't talked about, but is PHEVs, plug-in hybrids. If you think that a current vehicle that's out there, typical gas or even the diesel, whatever, has a number of DTCs, wait till you work on a PHEV. Those numbers are going to jump significantly, the complexity. And the thing, the interesting part of that is the vehicles that are now going into PHEV are not going to be specialty vehicles or whatever. They're going to be run-of-the-mill vehicles that you're going to see, and that's going to be a little scary in the short term.
Well, and that brings up a question I was about to ask, but it did get prompted from the audience, and that is, to the extent that you can share this, do all of you offer the same tooling that is available at a dealer, so scan tools that a dealer would be able to get access to? Do you offer that to aftermarket shops or the independent shops? There is another question here about price. We're going to avoid price. We've all agreed we don't want to talk about dollar amounts or value. If you do have a question about that, by all means, see them individually. But we're not going to touch that part.
John, I think you were talking to me. I've been itching to answer that
Okay,
question.
I was actually, yes, I was looking. I should have turned. Yes, I know. Yes,
I think I can sense it, because that's a bigger part of why we're here, right? We're sharing this recording and with you that maybe you weren't aware that there are diagnostic trouble codes beyond the malfunction indicator light. Well, now what's next? You need the service information, our service information. We try our hardest again to make it available to you as you need it. techinfo.toyota.com. Anybody can get the same information. It's not dealer specific. It's independent also. Same information for everybody. Repair decision maker, techinfo.toyota.com. You get the repair information that you need for all of our models. The tooling on the same website, start there. You can find a TechStream Lite kit, which is the same software, TechStream software, as our dealers get for anybody, whether it be a dealer technician that wants to invest a little bit more to have their own specific tool, because not every technician in the shop has it, or whether it's an independent shop, it's the same stuff. Everybody has the same level of support, accessible at different options for different needs, all there. And our training. So you have the information, you have the tool, you still don't know quite how to use it. Our training, Toyota's collision repair training, is available to everybody. Same stuff again. The dealers are required to have it if they choose to be part of the certification program. Well, it's the same certified dealers sit in class with an insurer and with an independent shop, accessible to everybody. crrtraining.com. Everybody has the same level of access to us, all the resources we provide.
Anyone want to clarify or jump on top of that?
Yeah, I will too. All of our calibration equipment, all of our tools that the dealer would use, we make available to the public. So any collision shop could get it if they want it. As a matter of fact, we're also running a promotion through our certified collision program where we'll actually eat some of that money if the shop does need tooling to get up to the next level. We'll actually give pretty deep rebates on some of that equipment. We call it our TechMate promotion. So if there's any certified shops out there that are lacking anything, get with me after this and I'll be happy to follow up with you.
Yeah, I'll jump in for Honda. We offer, just like Eric and Justin mentioned, we offer the exact same software, Scantool software, the exact same interface box that we provide to the dealers and they're required to have. You provide the laptop, we provide the software, and you buy the interface box from us. You go to techinfo.honda.com. There's, in the very center of the page, there's a heading called Diagnostic Tools. There's a link that says click here, and it will take you to a page that lists all the stuff you need to get online and check everything. And this is the tool we developed that we know works on every system, on every Honda and Acura vehicle. Cost is actually quite reasonable. We won't be, like I said, we're not going to get the cost, but it's quite reasonable. Prices are listed there. Requirements for your laptop are listed there. So it's actually quite easy.
Thank you for the question. We got a ton of questions coming in here. So, John, you want to quickly jump on?
Yeah,
I got questions for all of you.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
we have a similar process to American Honda. We have the software capability. We have the tool available. But probably the most important thing about having the tool is we update it every week. Okay? If you go out and you buy a common brand tool from, we won't name any names, but there are a lot of them out there. You buy one of those tools, we give them all the information except for two types that by federal mandate we're not required to give them. And I think one of them is security and the other one is related to the CAN database. Anyway, the point of that is they get everything that we have. It's basically we give them a tape readout and they go and generate their software. Well, if we have something that has an option on, we'll just say it's a relatively small number of vehicles, we'll just say 100 for the sake of saying it. And they may choose, well, we'll make our software, but we won't do anything with that 100 vehicle option at all. Well, all of our software has it. Okay, as I say, it's updated at least once a week, plus you can actually do recalls with it. Okay, so it's the same software that our dealers have for reflashes and all that.
John, I think that brings up a good point in regards to finding the latest and greatest information too. Latest and greatest, we can only control what we do in-house, right? So our service information that we provide, we can control that. If Chris goes and updates one of his bulletins, it's going to be updated the next day. The first day that it's published, if you all are subscribed to that service or our service, you're going to see the update that day. We can't control what other companies are doing with updates and like that. What we can control is designing our system, sharing our information in a way that allows them to update it if they choose to. An example of that is our diagnostics. We built our cars to be J2534 compliant. It's an open standard that independent tool companies can design their scan tools too. We're open with that stuff, and we control what we can to make it our cars information and everything accessible. And it's I don't think we're trying to. We're certainly not trying to limit the abilities of people to fix our cars. We're doing everything within our power, but we can only control so much.
All right, we have literally 15 questions.
Oh,
So unless you have a real pressing want to jump onto, I'm just going to randomly start asking.
Are they all for Chris?
No, they're not all for Chris. In fact, no, they're all for you. For Justin Miller Nissan. Justin Miller Nissan. Justin Miller. No, I'm kidding. Okay. So let me throw this out there. We talked about the fact that cars can be jolted, cars can be hit, accidents can happen. You talked about, scanning after some, the term of visible damage on the outside. The question from one of the actually there's a couple different questions. I'm going to summarize, synthesize into one is, in heavier collisions, it is possible that damage may not manifest itself until after a period of time.
True.
And the question then is, a really good question is, do we want to start contemplating having the customer come back even after repair a couple days later, after the car's been driven, to try and do a scan where the manifestation occurs after it's being used? The other question along that line is, how sensitive are modules? Can accidents actually jolt, break, damage the module? How sensitive are the modules to accidents? I'll just tell you what, I'll let you start, and then I got other questions for you guys, but you guys feel free to add in. Go ahead, Eric.
Sure, I'll speak to the question about customers coming back. And this is a personal opinion. I would hate to inconvenience a customer by asking them to come back. And I'd like to add that you can, in our repair information, once again, you can see the criteria required to set that diagnostic trouble code. So if you were concerned with a drive cycle, right? So you can see what the drive cycle is required to turn on that DTC. My recommendation would be to have the technician in the shop perform that drive cycle and then do the diagnostic scan before returning. It actually pairs, it just goes a little bit deeper as an explanation of how, when to do the scan that we're recommending in our crib bulletin. We recommended a scan before returning the car to the customer. A little bit more detail on that after a road test before returning the car to the customer.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. There's some DTCs that require drive cycle. They require a certain vehicle speed, coolant temperature, throttle position, or a combination of many factors. It is never a good idea to give a car back to a customer in any repair situation without a test drive, without verifying that car is a car that you would want to put back on the road. And customers generally don't like to come back, and they get rather upset by that. So I think it's in everybody's best interest for customer satisfaction that we handle that up front before the car's returned.
You want it fixed. In our case, we want it fixed first visit. And we found, data that has shown that if a customer has to come back and he or she is not happy with the repair just by coming back, 60% of those people, depending on what it is, will trade the vehicle. And depending on how mad they are, based on coming back, 62% of them will change brands. Now, do we want that? No, and I don't think any of my cohorts up here want that either. So the bottom line is, make sure you do a road test, as in a lot of cases, as Chris said, that, the recalibrations and such require that, vehicles are driven for X amount of time. But basically do the road test before you give it back to the customer.
We have a really interesting and fascinating question. You're all from the respective American armed branch of your companies, but the audience is international. So one of the questions is, for those who find themselves outside of the States, most notably in Canada or in Mexico, recommendations or ways for them to access the material in a manner that allows them to do the things that their U.S. counterparts can. One of the examples here is that there is one of the websites that does not allow for province to put in. It's very U.S.-centric. It looks for city, state, zip code, not province, city. Any ideas or thoughts on how they behave in that regard?
That was a good question because somebody asked me that yesterday.
So you fixed it, right?
I need to. Well, it was late yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to get into it yet. But I'm going to check into that. But technically, they have the same information available in Canada as we do in the United States.
Okay.
So that shouldn't be a problem there. I mean, if there's a website concern, and I think that's what it was, based on the question that he brought up. I need to verify that, and because there's some way to get around it if you're from Canada, because they'll ask for your state and whatever it is. We'll have to look at that specifically, but that was the first I've ever heard of it.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, our service information comes out of Japan. I'm not in Japan, so I'm probably not qualified to say that. But I will say there are other countries that are adopting the certified network that are going to be up and running before too long. And I think it would be up to them to reach out to us and see sort of how it would cross.
Good.
Yeah, so for American Honda, we have authority over America. Honda Canada has authority for Canada. We do share documents. I know they're looking at the scanning position statement, but oftentimes local markets need to make modifications to satisfy various requirements or regulatory requirements. We are not the experts on Canada. We don't pretend to be, so we give them the raw material and let them modify as needed. So when they issue it, then it may read a little differently, and you need to follow whatever the sales and service organization that's responsible for that vehicle in your market dictates.
Excellent. Okay, so we got. Let me. This is going to be an interesting one. So, John, you talked about this. Over the next 3 to 5 years, most of you as OEMs have talked about and are intimating at the highest levels autonomous or some type of car that is going to be further advanced. It is, while they are autonomous and they themselves may not be involved in an accident, they are likely going to get in an accident because somebody else will hit them. So these cars will, in fact, present themselves in some future time frame. One of the questions from the audience member is, given that you have all these computational units on the car, why can't you put the software that you all gentlemen make and let the car actually read out the diagnostics so that you don't need to do scanning, right? The car can just tell you, here are all my DTCs, here's the report. Like we were talking about yesterday, here's the PDF, let the car can print a PDF of everything that's wrong with it and then say, go fix me. Is that spacey? Is that cool? Is that interesting?
That's an interesting twist, that's for sure. I mean, we're working with Google. They have purchased some vehicles from us, and they are inputting all their software on our vehicle, and they're doing it themselves. We don't know what they're doing. Seriously. I mean, they bought them, and they're in the process of making all the changes to it. And I'm sure they'll tell us what we need to know when the time comes, but right now we don't. I mean, we have very few people that are working with them, as far as I know. And they purchased our latest vehicle, the Pacifica. a number of them, and they're upfitting them.
Well, I mean, but seriously, the idea that the car could in fact self-report, is that fanciful, or is that?
So I think it's a cool idea, right?
You're gonna take that back to
as a former.
I'll give you the guy's name so you can get credit for the feature listed too.
Name it.
Yeah.
We're customers and we're listening. But if we're guys talking in a bar, then I'll throw out a couple of the challenges that I can.
We are guys in a bar. You guys can't see, but we have drinks up here. It's vodka.
It's working. So as guys in the bar talking about it, one thing would be increased cost to every vehicle, right? Our scan tools, that is a tool. That tool isn't it doesn't magically appear for free. There isn't a money tree similar. There isn't a text screen tree. So that would be something to consider. What about updating? You know, like John said, we're updating our tools all the time. Does that mean that we have to update the car every time? So I can see some challenges.
Okay.
The idea is pretty cool.
I was gonna say, would you reflash the whole vehicle at one time? I don't know. I mean, like I say, we don't know what all they're doing, and they're doing their own thing.
I think it's worth noting. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's cool doing these exercises where we're looking at what's it going to look like in 5 years. Because right now, this second, a lot of us are not repairing these vehicles 100% of the way. We're talking about scanning. Just with the technology right now, it's complicated. So I feel like if this corner doesn't get turned now, right now in the industry, then imagine where we're going to be 5 years from now. It's going to be crisis mode. So I think we need to take it seriously now to prepare for that next 5 years.
Let's be very clear. You just don't want to be on stage next year.
Sure.
That's it. Yeah. Sure. Okay, so here's a really good one. I'm going to ask each of you to I'm just conscious of time here. If you could all speak to this, because I'll position it generically, but is there a best practice for any of your respective OEM brands for independent repair shops to be able to properly document and affirm pre and post scans such that they can make a claim that they are in line with a Honda, Nissan, Toyota, or Chrysler quality repair? Is there a best practice for the documentation? And again, it's record keeping and it's attestation. So is there a best practice, or is there a specific thing? If you would each respond to it, because I'm sure it's going to be slightly different. So if you could each speak to it.
I guess from our point, no, we don't have any documentation that says you must go through this process, blah, 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 because I haven't written it yet.
Okay.
I mean,
It's coming soon though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's maybe one of those kind of things. But no, I am not aware of anything that we have that has that process set in stone.
For how they can attest that they did this.
Yeah. The bottom line is that everything everybody has talked about in all the different scanning meetings that I've been in is document, 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 because the insurance companies, it's one of those things, they don't know what they don't know, and you better prove it if you want to get paid. I guess that's the simple way to put it.
How about you?
Our software, it has a feature-friendly, customer-friendly feature built into it. It's a print button. So after you run the health check, you click the print button, and you have the ability to print off the entire check and attach it to the repair order is what we suggest. Do we have a grip bulletin for doing that? We don't.
I'm same as Eric. I mean, we put the statement out there as documentation to say this needs to be done. I think as far as the shop's record keeping, that's completely up to them. But yes, we have the helpful print button as well. So however the shop chooses to retain those records, which I think is very wise, by the way. I think everybody should be doing.
It's designed to print off in a friendly format. It's a one-page thing. It's
What was done, how it was done, by whom it was done. Right.
Yep, scan it in just like an invoice in the system. Done.
Nice.
Yeah, everybody has print capability in their tools.
But not in their car.
Not in the car yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Chris?
Similar to everybody else, the IHDS software has a feature called All DTC Check, where it will go through and it will query all the control units in the car, everything that's present, and look for DTCs. And it will output that on an All DTC Check report, which can be printed, which can be saved to PDF for electronic file management. It also allows you to enter the technician's name, RO number, and it's pretty convenient. You can do an all DTC check on one of our cars in 6 minutes or less.
So there are three different questions, somewhat, I mean, they all go to the same topic. So this is going to be for all of you, and I'm conscious again, we're 10, 19 other speakers. If you could begin to move yourself up to the left here where Aaron's at. I'll synthesize. I'm not going to read specific questions, but some of the audience members have highlighted the required versus recommended. Some have said, hey, what happens unfortunately in this industry is those that we would have to go to try and convince them of paying look at the word recommended as a way out for them, or it increases the level of fight from the shop standpoint to try and improve it. Can you speak to what does a shop, how does a shop how can a shop prove that in their professional opinion, this was what was required, and it's not a bilking issue? I believe, I saw this, if it was electric, or how can they better protect themselves so that the customer who ultimately bought your car is on the road and comfortable that their car was in fact and is still under warranty, protected, whatever, by each of your brands?
You know, the repair information is in the repair manual. The CRIF bulletin is supplemental information that we've made public and stated the why. I can't answer to, and as a matter of fact, I don't. I would like to hear the people that are saying that sit up here on a panel and explain why, because I don't understand the justification. We've done everything to tell you what it takes to complete a proper repair. How is recommended versus if I tell you that our vehicles are manufactured in this way and I'm recommending that you perform this repair, how can you say that you're going to choose to go against the recommendation of the manufacturer or a printed document in the repair manual? This is required to complete this repair. How can you, I don't know, what else can I do?
That's true.
Okay. And I haven't heard the other side. I've heard this concern from customers, but I haven't heard the person that made them report that concern to me answer to it. So I don't completely understand it, and that's the panel that I would like to watch and to hear.
Yeah.
So that I can better understand.
So Aaron, that's the panel for next year. Yeah. And Eric's going to be right in the front seat. Right?
And with that panel, then I can use that information to improve whatever close the gap. What am I not doing that I need to do differently?
So this is actually an excellent question, and I know I'm going to take the liberty as the moderator. So the position statements are welcomed, and pretty much everyone has said thank you. There's been a lot of other comments in it, but one of the questions that did come out is that the position statements don't include drive testing, and folks have been asking, where is there that drive testing is part and parcel of the recommendation or requirement? And obviously there's drive cycles. Is that the same? Are the duty cycle requirements the same as a drive test? Because again, Chris, you also said I would never return a car unless I drove it. But is that actually recommended? Because one of the questions came up is that's a chargeable step. And again, another issue with the insurance company. So any thought on that?
I think because it's been policy for so long for car manufacturers that we tend to take it for granted. I believe there's something in our position statement. I wrote it and I can't really remember exactly what I said about it. But that was a long time ago, a lot of documents ago. If there's not, then I need to go back and look at that. The issue we get into a drive cycle is that DTCs have different enable criteria, the different criteria that make that test run, and there's not necessarily one drive cycle that will solve every problem, or there's no guarantee that that code will run on that drive cycle. So if in some cases, for some codes, it is a real challenge, but we should at least make an attempt for it. So, if that's something we can do better as manufacturers, then we should probably go back and look at that.
With ours, with Nissan, there are variances in the drive cycles that you're talking about. So to Eric's point, these position statements were to highlight what's already in our service manuals that's much more in depth. So at the end of all of our position statements, you'll see reference service manual section, blah, 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 right? So if it's not to the appropriate specifications that you would like and you're dealing with that issue, you would just then go into the tech info and pull up that section where it would have the full service procedure, drive cycle, all that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Basically, our service information has all the required drive time that is needed for recalibration and so on and so forth. So that's your, hopefully within that period of time, if there's an issue with it, it'll show up in that time.
So we have 2 minutes left, and then we're going to take a 5-minute break to bring the other panelists on. So in those 2 minutes, I'll start with you, John. Just run through some closing thoughts. Again, thank you so very much for being on here. Thank you for your openness and the willingness to take unscripted questions. Closing thoughts to the audience members, and then letting them know if, in fact, you'll be around for a few minutes afterwards for them to touch base. So go ahead, closing.
I guess as a closing statement, I've been around in the collision industry for quite some time now. The bottom line is, it seems like we're always years behind the service end of the business. And the bottom line is, we're going to catch up. It's just a matter of time. This is a new idea, versus, service technicians have been doing this for years. Everybody will catch up. Everybody will get to that point. We'll all have the fixed first visit. We'll get there. It's just a matter of working through the little bumps that we have here. We'll get there.
Excellent. Eric.
My closing message would be that we're here for you. As a brand, it's important we share customers, and we understand that change can be difficult, and we want to do everything that we can to support you through the change. Find our training, crtraining.com, find our information on techinfo.toyota.com, and our tools, and keep giving us these opportunities and this feedback so that we can continue to provide the best service to you that we can.
And the public safety message, please. Come on. What's that little stuff under your... Come on. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. What's Movember? Yeah.
So this guy, I didn't just forget to shave this morning. I got a little bit of sleep last night. It's intentional. It's not as nice as last year. If you were here last year, my caterpillar over the lip, but I'm intentionally growing a mustache this month. I normally don't wear one. And I'm doing that to support men's health, the Movember Foundation. The tagline that they're using this year is "Stop Men Dying Too Young." And whether it's prostate cancer, testicular cancer, men's health, or mental health, I can relate to this movement in the sense that I don't really talk about the issues that I'm having. There are some health concerns that I don't really want to share with my wife, or I'd rather go to work and not go to the doctor. So I don't talk about those things normally. This month is my opportunity to address it myself, reflect myself, and to talk about it.
Good. Excellent. Congratulations. All right, closing thoughts.
Closing remark. Our Nissan and Infiniti customers deserve a repair that's 100% back to the way it was. We want to help the repair industry do that. I want to, personally. Go to collision.nissanusa.com. There's an email link. Email any questions you have. I'm happy to personally respond to them. If I don't know the answer, I'll do my best to find one for you. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Okay, and Chris.
I would say, closing arguments, we all have, everybody, bill payers, shops, manufacturers, have a mutual interest in a properly repaired vehicle and a happy customer. To that end, whether the document says it's required, recommended, or whatever, please remember these documents are published for a reason. They're published to help you and support you, and we try to do that, and we try to be fair with everybody in the industry. The best thing that can be done is document what you do. Document it, tie it back to a manufacturer publication of what has to be done. Always remember that everyone has a boss. Everyone answers to someone, bill payers, everyone alike. They need to see the reasoning for why you're doing what you're doing. And it also helps cover you in case something happens.
Excellent. So again, gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining. Ladies and gentlemen, there are some questions that weren't asked, and I apologize, we ran out of time. So for those of you that didn't get your question asked, the gentleman will be around in the back. Please take advantage of that. And if you would, please join me in a warm round of applause.